Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at some of the Marvel collected editions coming out this week. So, let's go ahead and get started. Now, you may have noticed that I said that I'm doing an overview of some of the Marvel collected editions coming out this week, and that's because I've already done an overview of the Immortal Hulk Omnibus. The Hulk's getting a lot of love. He's got a new series over here with Joe Fixit, and then the... Oh, why did I go over there? The Marvel Masterworks Incredible Hulk Volume 17. So we do have a different array of collections. We have a couple of epics, a new trade that features a newer series by Peter David, and this is not collected in the 5th Omnibus. By the way, the Incredible Hulk 5th Omnibus, this is something new that's been collected. The final anthology of the Krakoa era with Trials of X Volume 12, a Marvel Masterworks and art book, and then one of the digest-sized books. So, as always, I like to leave timestamps in the description of the video in case you don't want any kind of spoilers at all. You don't care about the artwork, you're already getting the series. However, if you feel like you need to see what the artwork looks like, or at least the pitch of the stories collected in there, by all means, jump around. Timestamps are in the description. And as always, please don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Thank you all so much. Alright, let's go ahead and start with, of course, Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider. Here we have Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider. This is a digest-sized trade paperback, and what I mean by that is that it's smaller in trim size than a regular trade paperback. So something like this. You can see how much bigger this epic collection is. But these are wonderful entry points for people. And it's usually, I think, geared towards a younger audience. Not limited, of course, because anybody can get these. These usually retail a lot less than your average collected edition. This one here, for example, is $13.99. And it has 240 pages. So what this is a collection of the Ghost Spider era. So this is Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider 1 through 10. And then the Spider-Geddon Ghost Spider video comic one-shot. Which is interesting because it kicks off with Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider number 1 instead of the video one-shot. And if you have the Omnibus, this second volume, that kicks off with the the Spider-Geddon tie-in. Because that's when Peter Porker shows up and he gets Gwen involved in the Spider-Geddon, which is kind of what the first 4 issues are about. It's her just fighting in her own little corner of the universe, and then of course expanding out to different multiverses. So I've done an overview of the Omnibus if you want to see a more in-depth overview of this particular book, or the stories collected in here. The first 10 issues take place in her universe, and it is within these pages that it is decided that she will no longer be known as Spider-Woman because she wants to attend the Empire State University. So in order to do that, she has to go to the 616 universe, which is the same university that Peter Parker did, which is why she decides to choose a new superhero name, and she went with Ghost Spider. In here, you're going to see her connection with her father and the Mary Janes, some new villains, and there is a new villain that causes havoc in the last arc in this. Like, so the first 4 issues are tie-ins to Spider-Geddon. There's actually issue number 4 is a funeral for one of the characters that died in the Spider-Geddon event, and then she has to go and deliver the bad news across the multiverses to the different people's the different families of the people that died in Spider-Geddon. So it's a really interesting first 4 issues, but then she kind of does her own thing for the rest of the series, or for the rest of these issues. Now, as I mentioned, the last thing that's collected in here is the video comic that is pretty much the setup to Spider-Geddon. There are some variants in the back, and the book retails for $13.99. Is that Okay, just making sure that was Conan. And printed in this thick, glossy paper. Trials of X, Volume 12. And this I like to call To All Good Things, because this was my favorite way of collecting the Krakoa era. And I know that in recent, in about a year and a half, they haven't been up to date with the series, right? The trade paperbacks were just coming out so much quicker than the anthologies. But this is the official final one. They have been discontinued, and that breaks my heart. And I get it. You got to keep moving with what sells. But I'm going to miss these. So I'm hoping what ends up happening is that when we get to the end of the Krakoa era, we do get some kind of oversized omnibus collections of that era. And they are using these as kind of the mapping guide to how to properly put them together, because I thought they did such an amazing job putting the series together. And I think they would have to do some tweaking, to make like 4-issue arcs together. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. This collects Devil's Reign X-Men number 3. That's how he kicks it off. So still Emma Frost dealing with the Kingpin. It also collects X-Men number 8. That's the series that was relaunched by Jerry Duggan in 2021. Sabretooth 2 and 3. And Marauders Annual number 1. And that is the new Marauders Annual, the stuff that was done by Steve Orlando. And yes, this is Emma Frost. It's a little bit of a flashback, but her dealing her own way with the Kingpin. And then we have the fight against MODOK. So it's the X-Men fighting against MODOK here. And again, all of this stuff has been collected in trade paperbacks, like for each individual series. And one of my most favorite series that came out, I read it in trade first, was the Sabretooth series. And sadly, it doesn't even wrap up the Sabretooth series, because it ends with issue number 3. And there's one more issue to wrap up Sabretooth. And this pretty much deals with the character of Victor Creed and what he's been doing since he was sentenced to the center of Krakoa in the pages of House and Powers of X. And there he might have found some friends, some kindred spirits that may want revenge for things done to them by the Council. And that all leads into another series called Sabretooth and the Exiles. I don't think it has anything to do with the original Exiles. I love that series, by the way. And then we have the Marauders Annual. So now we have a brand new team. It's still Kate Pryde. She's still setting cells with the Marauders, but they're brand new characters, or not brand new characters, but a new team of characters. And their first mission is to go and rescue Ken. So that's what that particular annual is about. That's also been collected in the trade paperbacks. In the back is where you're going to find the variant covers. I'm a big fan of the X-Men trading card variants. X-Gwen, looking a lot like Boom Boom there. Brimstone Love, that's the character from the Marauders Annual. $19.99. This is the final one. Hulk, Joe Fixit. And I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way. This is my pick of the week. And it was difficult whenever you have things like Journey into Mystery. I love that series. Or things that have never been collected, like the Judgment War. Or the Bill Mantlo run on Hulk. But this was just too good. This is Peter David returning to one of my favorite creations that he did over in the pages of The Incredible Hulk. And it's a return to Joe Fixit. It feels like it's a return to simpler times. And I say simpler times when we're talking about a character that had split different Hulk personas at the time when Peter David was writing him. Well, but I mean, he was writing what I like to call the good type of retcon, explaining why there was a gray Hulk. Of course, in the 60s when the Hulk first appeared, but that was all due to the coloring, and they had to use green colors. But later on in his run, he decided, wait, why don't I just make the colors a little bit different, which is eventually what we got with the Red Hulk later on. But here we have a new series featuring the character of Joe Fixit. And look, if you are a fan of Peter David Hulk, go and just move on to the next book. Don't even watch this overview. Believe me, this was awesome. If you've never read the Hulk, just a little bit of background. Joe Fixit is a persona that he created while the Hulk was believed to be dead. There was a big fight that happened, and he created this strong guy persona that went to be a bodyguard for Michael Berengetti in Vegas. So he went to live in Vegas and just be a bodyguard for this guy, for the casino owner. And that's where we find him here. And he is a smart Hulk. He's able to talk. And as a matter of fact, people didn't know it was the Hulk. They explained his gray skin as some kind of skin condition. And it kind of is explained a little bit here. So this does feel like it takes place in the past. It takes place like during the Peter David run on the Hulk, especially during that time when he was Joe Fixit. And Joe Fixit is just such an awesome character because up until that point, whenever you're reading The Incredible Hulk, it always felt like, Banner's the guy we're reading about. Hulk's the guy that smashes out and does things. Whether he's turning into the Hulk at night or whether it's rage that drives him to turn into the Hulk, it doesn't matter. It's, oh, here comes the Hulk and he's going to ruin everything. The Joe Fixit persona turns that formula around and it's Hulk. You're reading about Hulk and then he's worried about turning into Bruce Banner because he's going to be weaker. He can't be a bodyguard. He can't literally bounce bullets off of his chest to protect his boss. So it's oh great, here comes Bruce Banner. He's going to ruin everything. And I love that about the persona of Joe Fixit. In the first issue, we see Spider-Man hanging out in Vegas. He's just going on a book tour for his new photograph book. So he's going as Peter Parker, not Spider-Man. And he knows that the Hulk is down there, even though people being interviewed or the news outlets are saying that it's some guy with a skin conditions and you bodyguard rumors that he's bulletproof. Spider-Man's like, dude, that's the Hulk. I fought him. And who does he meet at the airport? Kingpin. So Spider-Man's like, okay, I gotta go see what this is about. This is one of my favorite moments. It's just little moments like this that Peter David does. Just love it. So Spider-Man, of course, puts a tracker on him, right? So he accidentally touches him and he's like, watch your hands, boy. And Spider-Man's like, I'm not a boy. And he just stares him down and walks away. And he's like, my mistake. Just good character, man. Character moments. I love that. So he puts a tracker on him. And he realizes that Kingpin is going to go and meet with Mr. Berengetti to talk about the Magia and pretty much the gangsters that are pulling out and how he wants to go into business with him. And Berenghetti's like, I don't need you. We don't need anything like that. There's nothing further to discuss. And that's when his new bodyguard, Joe Fixit, steps in. So this is a moment that a lot of people, maybe it's just me, have been wanting to see in Marvel Comics. And that is the fight between the Hulk, well, really Joe Fixit, and Kingpin. So that we get this amazing fight. And what ends up happening, Spider-Man's caught in the middle. Oh my gosh, this was so good. I'm going to just forward a little bit. Needless to say, it doesn't go the way that Kingpin thinks. You need to see what the Hulk does with the Kingpin. It's freaking awesome. Doesn't go the way that the Kingpin thinks it's going to go. So instead of trying to go and kill Joe Fixit, he wants to hire Joe Fixit to work for him, offering him money, offering him anything, and then, of course, bringing in his own group of villains. And that's really all I will say about the series. Like, that's the pitch. It's 5 issues. All 5 issues are collected in here. There is an extra thing, which is the first appearance of Joe Fixit, not the Great Hulk, Joe Fixit, in Incredible Hulk 347. That is collected back there, too. I have to give it up to Yildiray Cinar, the artist. Oh, it's killer. It reminds me of a good mix of, like, Byrne and Del Keown and Derek Robertson. I like it a lot. As a matter of fact, I like it more than Cully Hammer's covers. I was thinking this is going to be what the art looked like, but I was really surprised when I got in the book that the art looks like this. It's solid artwork and it works for the character of the Hulk. And as I said, the back has his first appearance. But before you get to his first appearance, there's a couple of variant covers and a little timeline on the character of Joe Fixit, too, in case you're not familiar with him. Kind of wish they had put that at the beginning of the book, though. But this is his first appearance, and yeah, that's it. 136 pages. The book retails for $17.99. It is not in the omnibus, just in case, the 5th omnibus. If you're wondering where else to read it, it is only available in trade paperback because it's a series that just came out. I think it came out in 2023 or late 2022. Marvel Studios Eternals, The Art of the Movie. Every one of their art books is in this landscape format. I think they used to come in slipcases. To kind of give you an idea of the dimensions of it, here it is compared to a Marvel Masterworks, which is trim size paper, or the pages are the trim size of a comic book. So it is done in this landscape format. And they're beautiful put together books. But like I said, I think they used to come in slipcases. But now they just come outside of the slipcases. And what I love most about these is the conceptual art, like the stuff that started at the beginning, the ideas they had, and then of course the translation over into film. It's so cool to see the behind the scenes of like the character concepts and the settings, or some things that just never happened that was originally thought out through the plot, and then during some changes, whether it was post-production or while they were filming, they decided to cut some things out. This is the Deviants right there, and I'm sure you probably saw the Eternals. And honestly, as you know, I'm not a fan of every single one of the movies, but I am a fan of artwork, and I love art books. And if you're a fan of art books, these are the same dimensions as like the Pixar art books that have been put out, or the DreamWorks art books. And absolutely beautiful 3D rendering art. And there's also some penciled artwork in here too. So it's not just computers, it's actually hand-drawn art as well. This book is 224 pages and retails for $60. Just a closer look at the Deviants. Some scenes from the movie, from the storyboards, and split up into different chapters. Here's some of the weapons. As a matter of fact, there is a table of contents here, kind of giving you an idea of what to get out of this book. So you get Worth Saving, To the End, Judgment, and then your afterword, and then biographies on the contributors. So anybody that worked on the book. It's a very beautiful art book. And they do one for every single one. That guy looks a lot more like Galactus and less like a Celestial. Every single one of the Marvel movies. The Spider-Man movies, even the ones that are done, that are co-done with Sony, they also get their own art books. There's the afterword right here. If you do care about the movies, one thing I will say is I do suggest at least watching the movie first, because it might spoil some of the things that end up happening within the movie, and then the artist credits. So those are all the way in the back here. And it is art on board and a hardcover. Wow, this week made it a little hard to do all the spines because of the Eternals book being in landscape format. But here are the spines of all the books coming out this week. And a reminder to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Alright, let's continue with the overviews. Alright, here we have Loki, the Modern Epic Collection, Volume 1. And this one is Journey into Mystery. This has been collected in trade paperbacks before, in complete collections, and an omnibus. But now it's coming out in a modern epic collection. And this is a really interesting one. But before I go any further, I will say that the spine on the modern epic collection seemed to have a trend. So we knew when we looked at, for example, Spider-GWEN, got it right here, that the bottom, the pictures are no longer going to be like a monochrome. They're not going to have just one color. They're going to be colorful. But it looks like the logo or the actual title is going to be white. So it's like flipped. They put this in color and have taken the color out of the font here. So let's look at some more. We have like New Avengers that's coming out. As a matter of fact, here's Loki Volume 2. And then Guardians of the Galaxy. Looks like the titles are going to have a consistent color, titles of the actual books, but the logos, but the actual name of the Epic Collection is going to be just white. So that will, in case you have classic Epic Collections next to a modern Epic Collection, that's what it's going to look like. Man, we already have that many modern epics? My gosh! But back to this. It looks like next month in September is when Volume 2 comes out, wrapping up this particular era. I've done an old reader, new reader on this book. if you want to go back and watch that. I think it was with Maddie and my buddy Harry. This was one of my favorite modern Marvel runs. And it's funny because I talked to Curtis a little bit about this because he was not a fan of the mapping in this book. And I kind of want to do an episode with him and maybe a couple other folks talking about the importance of events and collected edition. Because he feels like Fear itself would have helped out, or Siege would have helped out with this particular epic collection. So first, let's just talk about what is collected in here so you know what I'm about to talk about. So it kicks off with the Siege Loki #1, and then it collects Journey into Mystery 622 to 636, and then 626.1. Now, the Journey into Mystery Siege book, that is during the time of the miniseries Siege by Brian Michael Bendis. And this is Jamie McKelvey, I believe, who did Wicked and the Divine with Kieran Gillen, who's the main writer on this. Now, Kieran Gillen did write some Thor issues that led into Siege. And then after that, it was Matt Fraction coming in and writing Thor. I will say that, I don't know, I kind of feel both sides here. I feel like it's a double-edged sword when you're having collections, because the beauty of comics, Marvel comics and DC comics, is that there's a shared universe. So it reminds me of collecting single issues. And there was a crossover, a forced crossover, as most of the publishers like to do every summer. But, it's what got me started to read things like Iron Man or The Punisher, or if there was a crossover with the Avengers. That's what got me to start reading the Avengers, because of X-Men versus the Avengers. So things like that, I'm like, okay, I think that's why we don't have that stuff collected in here. And I'll be honest with you, having Fear itself collected in here, I don't think you would have benefited from it. As a matter of fact, the Fear itself tie-ins of Loki are better than the Fear itself. But that's just my personal opinion when it comes to Fear itself. I wasn't the biggest fan of that. And those are found in the Thor Omnibus by Matt Fraction, or in hardcover, or in trade paperback, but it's not collected in here. I think they do a good job explaining what happens, though. Like previously, how Loki came back. This explains a little bit as how he came back as a lady, and what his role was during the JMS run of Thor. And this right here kind of gives you a recap. It could have been longer, though, as to what happened between the ending of Siege and a particular issue of Thor, and how Loki is back as a kid. They could have gone more into details about that, because now we do find Loki in here as a child. Probably from the age of like 10 to 13, maybe? I would say 13-year-old at most. I love this run because it's a good, fresh start for the character of Loki. And it wasn't until I talked to Curtis, we did a video together, that I never thought about people being confused, because that was always my mentality. I'm like, oh, okay, if I want to read about the serpent, I guess I'll go read what the serpent is in the pages of Thor, the Fear itself. Because this is mainly focused on the character of Loki, even though the title is Journey into Mystery. Alright, so the pitch is that Loki is back to being a cute little boy. This little kid is trying to make everyone believe that he is good. So something happens at the end of Siege, and then during Matt Fraction's run on Thor, that changes the character. And he is trying to prove, just about in each issue, that he is not the same god of mischief, that he is not even a god, because he's a human child now. Even though everybody thinks that he is the Lord of Lies, but now he just wants to tell the truth and wants to kind of make amends for the nightmare that was his past that he can't really remember. Maybe subconsciously he can. And the whole series is based on the idea, can someone really change if they had a fresh new start? And it's such a wonderful idea, and I wish I could talk about both issues, but seriously, if you want to see my in-depth overview or review of my feelings about this book, I'll leave the link up here for that Old Reader, New Reader. I think that we did it about 2 or 3 years ago. But I still feel the same every time I reread these stories. They're just wonderful because they're about this new type of character, a new Loki that is using his wits instead of magic to make everything work for him. And then, of course, that comes with a price. So, in the end, against him. There's a new character that is introduced through these pages. It's a young girl named Leah. And Leah will play kind of a big sidekick character to Loki. And she's also a young girl, young teenage girl. This young lady right here, probably around the age of 12, 13. She's Hela's kind of little. I don't want to call her a servant because she's always at her side, but she kind of helps Loki on this journey through this series. And there's these little innocent moments that just reminds you of like your maybe just me. It reminded me of like my first crush I had on a young girl. Man, it's just so much wonderful stuff through here. The character of Mephisto plays a big important part in here, and I love the way that he's drawn. He's got these big badass sideburns. And all of this feels like a new status quo for not just the character of Loki, but the character of Thor. What I really liked about this was the way that Loki, Kid Loki, manipulated people, but in good ways. Using somebody, like using a favor with somebody to go and help somebody else out. And then tricking people, not with magic, but just with his wit, to join his side or to do things for him and to work against the enemy. Even though he's dealing with two different enemies at some points. Like I said, Mephisto plays a part of this. Hela plays a part in this. It's just really interesting to see this. This is, and what I think it's one of those, I hate to compare him to Jonathan Hickman, but he's very Jonathan Hickman or Grant Morrison, like just overreaching and managing to just do this wonderful story and this narrative in a monthly series. Very few writers can do that and tell a wonderful all-in-done story between this and volume 2. Because you don't need to have read anything, at least I don't think, before or anything after these two books to enjoy this overall arc, because, oh my gosh. And the ending still hits. This is a wonderful collection. I'm so glad that it's back in print. Because the complete collections are gone, the omnibus is gone, so I'm glad that it's back. This one here retails for $44.99, and it has 432 pages. In the back is, oh, by the way, Kieran Gillen is a huge fan of role-playing games, tabletop games. But in the back, you get the variant covers. You get the origin of Marvel Comics, kind of give you a little guide as to not just the story of Loki, but the story of Asgard and Thor. Little interview with Kieran Gillen there. And then the Fear itself spotlight. The Fear Lords. This is such a cool concept. You probably saw Nightmare in there when I was flipping through the pages. He's not the only Fear Lord, and that comes to play big time. I think this is Doug Braithwaite doing the internal artwork. You also have Will Spertasio doing some of the artwork in there. There is a Christmas issue. This issue right here, 632. This one is drawn by Mitch Brettweiser. It's got Volstagg as Santa Claus. Oh, this one is so good. And I just love the artwork in here. A lot of use of shadows, and it's just a really good story. It ties into Christmas. Maybe I was reading around Christmas time, but this is such a good read. If you've never read it, do yourself a favor and check this one out. I just gushed about Loki Modern Epic Collection Volume 1, but I gave the seal of approval of my pick of the week to Joe Fixit. So what am I even going to say about X Factor? Well, hold on to your butts, because so much of this has never been collected in a collected edition outside of the Essentials, I think, because I think the Essentials did make it this far, but I had stopped getting it by them. I had stopped buying the Essentials. I think I got X Factor 1. Yeah, I had X Factor 1, but I never got past 1. Just the black and white never did it for me. Here's your credit to Louise Simonson, Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Kieran Dwyer. That's the fill-in issue right there with is that 47, I think? Let's see if this old brain still got it. Walter Simonson, Mark Silvestri, Rob Liefeld, John Byrne, Arthur Adams, the legendary Paul Smith, who I didn't appreciate at the time, coming in as the new penciler. So this does have the last few issues of Walter Simonson as the ongoing penciler in X Factor. Now this is volume number 4. And I believe we still need a volume 2 in Epic Collection. Now, Inferno has been collected in an Epic Collection. And no, that wasn't. It was the what Milestone? Is that what they were? No, I had the yellow border. I did an overview of all of them. They were really. It was a really cool idea. Events maybe. Anyway, but it's also been collected in an omnibus format, oversized hardcovers, and many trade paperbacks. So this does start off with Inferno going full force. Now X Factor is heavily fighting the demons of the Goblin Queen. You can find out who the Goblin Queen is by reading these stories. But the biggest thing that happens in here is that for the first time, the titles are crossing over. X Factor has been going for 3 years, and there was no official crossover with the X-Men. Mutant Massacre didn't really count outside of, Wolverine going, "No, that smells like Genie," in the sewers, and nobody saying anything about, the X-Men or X Factor, because at this time, X Factor still believes that the X-Men are dead. And the ending of issue 37, I remember being a kid and being so impatient for this moment, and this did not disappoint. Wolverine finally finding out that it was Jean Grey alive in those sewers and laying a kiss on her while Cyclops just stood there and was like, "Well, I can't say anything. My wife and kid are here." And I kind of left them for Jean, so I'm just going to be quiet. This one drawn by Mark Silvestri. But this is the first team up between these two teams. And of course, in Marvel fashion, and I love it still to this day, they get into a fight, believing that, wait a minute, these are demons. They can't be the X-Men. The X-Men are dead. And they go and fight each other, these two teams of X Factor and the X-Men. The story continues, of course, and trying to make an ultimate sacrifice. Not everybody makes it out of here. I will say that the big standout character for me was always Longshot in this series. I've been a big fan of his, and I don't think he gets enough recognition. Well, I don't know. Maybe the internet does have a whole forum dedicated to how cool Longshot is, or was. And, of course, who is behind the scenes is all revealed here, and the big finale. And something that Chris Claremont always said about the X-Men is that trouble always comes looking for the X-Men. Even in the middle of a funeral, they just can't get away from trouble. Here we have Nanny, an orphan maker, trying to kidnap Jean's niece and nephew, because that's what Nanny does. And of course, she decides to take them in. This is the Atlantis Attacks tie-in with John Byrne on art right here. And of course, one of my favorite Inferno Aftermath stories right here by Mark Grunwald. And the artwork is by Jim Fern. I love the use of the Blues Brothers in this particular Aftermath, whether demons really came or not. And then the Peter Sanderson continuing story of the saga of the Serpent Crown with Mark Bagley on artwork. Now, the big thing in here is, of course, this. Arthur Adams doing 2 fill-in issues 41 and 42. Al Milgrom doing the inks. And the big thing about this was the first appearance of this kid right here, Alchemy. And it was a kid that was created by a fan of the X-Men, and it was a contest that you had to fill out this mutant registration form, create your own mutant, but this kid ended up winning. However, the first appearance was supposed to be in the pages of New Mutants, but I think delay after delay kept happening, storylines kept adding to Louise Simonson's schedule, so they just put it in here into the pages of X Factor. So it's about these group of trolls that are kidnapping this kid Alchemy, and of course X Factor gets involved. Now, of course, if you're an X-head, you know that these characters, including Alchemy, show back up in the pages of Excalibur as sort of a follow-up to this. with artwork by Joe Madureira, who had a very Arthur Adams art style when he started in those. I think that's in 57 and 58 of Excalibur, found in the second omnibus. And then we kick off the saga that I think people are divided on. People either hate it or love it. Regardless, it's never been collected outside of Essentials, but here it is, the Judgment War. So ship, of course, the X Factor ship they're building, that well, they'll become a building later on, has celestial tie-ins. Like it's a celestial ship, as they found out, and it is being summoned by the Celestials because the Celestials are about to judge a planet, and that's where X Factor ends up. They end up in this planet that is going through their own kind of civil war. They're kind of separated. People that are flawless on this planet, and I mean flawless like perfection, their physical bodies are perfection. They're fighting against the people that don't look as pretty as they do. So, of course, it's a lot of heavy-handed commentary on what was going on in the Marvel Universe, right, with humans and mutant kinds. But my favorite moment came from the first issue. At the very end, when Cyclops is about to get stepped on by Celestial, and he just says, "What a stupid way to die." Top 10 favorite Cyclops moments. And because they all look different, you know, they're all separated. Some of them are with the good-looking aliens, and some of the others are with the not-so-good-looking aliens. There's a big fight, there's a coliseum, and keep in mind, the Celestials are judging this planet. This is, I think, where we get a fill-in issue of... It's issue 47, I want to say. That's 46. Let's see if my brain still has it. Paul Smith, by the way, coming back and drawing X-Men characters was just amazing. And then you have Al Milgrom doing the inks. And as a kid, I was so sad to see Walter Simonson go because I just love the way Walter Simonson drew these characters. I love the way that he drew, like, Wolverine was so evil looking, especially with his demonic look to his face. It was just like all blacked out. You could just see his teeth and his eyes like that. I don't know, there's just something cool about that. I don't think my buddy Matt, who also was collecting X-Men at the time, I don't think he dug it. Let's see here. The fill-in issue happens because of delays. I think Paul Smith was running a little late, so they had to have... wait. That's not the letter. Okay, this splits up. Okay, this tells you exactly the sides that the planets are broken up to. So you have the Chosen, and you have the Rejects. You can figure out who the pretty people are and who the not so good looking people are. Then you have the Space Gods, the Celestials, and X Factor and their role here, and the characters with each of the different divisions. And then you have the Begin-Agains. Guess that's how you say it. It was 47. All right, still got it. This is the fill-in issue by Kieran Dwyer because of delays, and it's a flashback issue of just Archangel trying to help out people throughout the city. And then, of course, all of it leading into issue number 50. I think issue number 50 is the cover. Yeah, no, it is. I know it is. This right here. I love that Apocalypse is being summoned for the Acts of Vengeance, and this is actually an Acts of Vengeance crossover issue. But this is the big finale of the fight on this planet, and whether the planet gets to live or not, you can find out. The really interesting thing about this particular Epic collection is that there's not really any extras. They're all kind of in between the chapters. Let's see, this has got to be the Marvel Age. Yeah, Marvel Age 65, and this is the story of Alchemy, and he's supposed to appear in an issue of New Mutants. Yeah, that's the way I remember it. That's the way it was. Soul Brain still got it. This one is $44.99, and it has 496 pages. Finally collected the Judgment War. Last but certainly not least, the latest in the Marvel Masterworks, The Incredible Hulk, Volume 17. So more of the Bill Mantlo era with our pal Sal Buscema. Dust jacket, like the rest of the Marvel Masterworks. And this tells you what it collects. Here you have the main writer, of course, Bill Mantlo during this era. Stephen Grant helping out with the Contest of Champions. So that's crazy. That I'll talk about the importance of that here in a little bit. Mark Grunwald and Joe Duffy. Sal Buscema, John Romita Jr., Rick Leonardi, Rich Buckler, and Frank Miller. That's got to be from the annual. And then your table of contents. There's a really good introduction here from Stephen Grant. Always suggest reading this after you've read the series. It's a 4-page introduction talking about Bill Mantlo and just how hard of a worker he was. And a couple of things I didn't know about, like, I don't know, I can't remember if I knew about Sabra or not, but I knew about the Arabian Night being created for the Contest of Champions. It was just because of the delays and the original idea that he showed up later on in the Contest of Champions and first appeared in the Hulk. But anyway, you do have the first appearance of Sabra through these pages here. Bill Mantlo, Sal Buscema writing these stories and kind of taking a journey through not Little Town America to Little Town America, but all over the world. It's like the Hulk goes on a world tour all over the place. Again, finding new characters towards the beginning here. You have the character of Sabra, who helps him out. He teams up with the Arabian Night. And there's another big fight that breaks out through here. But the other thing that Bill Mantlo was doing during this run, not just introducing new characters, but also reintroducing us to older characters that we hadn't seen for a while. Like Rick Jones is appearing through these pages in a backup story. And then you have Colonel Glenn Talbot show up through here. Betty shows up through here. And I just think that's really cool that he's using those characters and telling their stories while focusing on the Hulk. Like here he is teaming up with the Crimson Dynamo and the Vanguard and Darkstar right there. And they're about to be joined by the Red Guardian, Ursa Major, to take down this guy right here, Sergei, the Presence. So there's a big team up with that particular team. And does he join the Soviet super soldiers? Well, you probably know the answer to that. So like I was saying, he just goes, I mean, he even ends up in Japan. Japan. A really short and sweet story. There's a lot of heartache in some of these stories too. Like you can see how much that Bill Mantlo wanted to write about things going on in the real world, but still keeping it in the narrative of this story, the big fight with the Absorbing Man. And if you've read the Immortal Hulk, you know how much they've changed the Absorbing Man. This is the Glass House? Yeah, the Glass House people right here. And let's just keep going. Oh, the fight against Avalanche. This story right here, man, I was not expecting this one. Like, this is one where kids are involved, and you see the rage that the Hulk just snaps. What makes him snap through this? Like, yeah, that cover doesn't really do the story justice. And I know it's the cover that they chose for the Marvel Masterworks, but it's rough to see this particular story. Then you have the Captain Universe story in here, where Hulk might have to fight Captain Universe. And then annual number 11. This is the one that's got Bill Mantlo and Rich Buckler. You also have some Frank Miller stuff in here, which leads us to the Contest of Champions. And I've done an overview, a deep dive overview of the gallery edition of this. And it is known as pretty much the very first Marvel crossover. Yes, Secret Wars was really, really the big crossover, but the big event that kind of started everything was this, and it was the idea for the Summer Olympics. But then, well, the whole thing with the USSR and all that happened, so they kind of shelved the story. Then they brought it back. And they brought it back because this is John Romita Jr. on artwork, by the way. Some of it had to be redrawn. Pablo Marco's doing the inks through here. But they decided to do this because the letter pages just kept demanding or asking, when are we going to see a crossover between these characters? When are the Avengers going to fight the Hulk? When are the X-Men going to get involved? And I found that really interesting that that's how a forced crossover began. We are introduced to new characters, and like I was saying earlier, this is when the Arabian Night and Sabra from Israel were going to first appear, but because this got shelved, they really appeared in the pages of the Hulk. But you also have characters in here like the Talisman and Defensor from South America there, Argentina. But new characters show up through here, and they are picked to fight between two judges. They get to pick their own team, and it was just a fun story. All 3 issues are collected in here. Let's look in the back for extras. You have the Marvel superheroes from 1982. Of course, things are a little bit different now. The Contest of Champions, that's the original art by Bob Layton. Oh no, Bob Layton did the inks on this. Just a signature there. John Romita Jr. did the actual pencils. And then the introduction by Tom DeFalco from the 1999. Still gives me nightmares. That cover by Pepe Moreno. No offense, I think he's a wonderful artist. It's just, I don't know what it is. That cover just stuff of nightmares. And then the biographies on some of the wonderful folks that help put the stories together. It's weird, yeah. Some of the stuff has to be updated from time to time because a lot of these folks are no longer with us. This book has 400 pages, retails for $75. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below what you are picking up and what you're currently collecting in epic format, or if you're waiting for an omnibus, if you already have the Journey into Mystery omnibus, if you collect the Marvel art books, and then if you're going to pick up the rest of the Krakoa era with trade paperbacks, or if you were just getting it in the anthology series. And what your pick of the week would have been. Man, this is hard, because I really like a lot of the stuff here. Dude, that was killer. That was so fun. Smash that like button on the way out. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.